There we go. That'd be the tight one there. Got a couple of side cameras. All right, we're official. So how you been?
I'm good, man. I'm I guess we're recording this the night before UFO officially launches. So it's our fourth set. I'm very, very proud of it, the work that our team has done. It's obviously like every week leading up to release, or 2 weeks leading up to release, 2 weeks afterwards is crazy. But hopefully tonight I'll get some sleep. But it's almost like, going to sleep for Christmas or like Christmas Eve. It's, even though I'm not opening really any product, it's exciting. It's exciting. I love jumping into the chats, into the videos, and see how people respond to the product. And every time we release something, it's the response is even more positive, and it's more people involved, and it's just like this crazy ride. How about you?
I'm doing great. I mean, going nuts in this little town, trying to keep things going, we've moved to the new building, as you know. It's just trying to get the building up and ready. We're still working on murals, and the weather's just been rough. You know how it is starting anything new. You know better than anybody. What is the print run of UFO?
So globally, it's 100K of every SKU. Okay. So same as Wilderness, and it's really the max that we'll ever do for a set. Even though like we haven't released the book and the show in the video game yet, which I anticipate will many times multiply our fan base. I kind of like the idea of the core set being rarer as our fan base grows, and then we have all these other supplemental products. It
makes sense. Yeah. Everyone's excited. I tell you, I opened up a box as soon as I got my stuff in from Golden, and I love the artwork. I think it's the best artwork so far as being just sharp and crisp. I mean, your artists have outdone themselves again.
Yeah, it's crazy to think, like, we released our first set a year ago, right? But really a lot of the art was done in 2020, that summer. So it's been 2 years of doing art with a lot of these people, and the art that they did for base set was incredible.
Right.
But the growth of the artists over the past 2 years has just been tremendous. And so it's kind of like, dang, I'm getting, more bang for my buck because they keep getting better as a result of working. And so, it's just one of those things where you build up that institutional skill set that you can only really get by putting your nose to the desk and working. And it extends beyond the artists as well. It's the R&D is just, oh my God, like it's incredible what our play testers are doing. It's incredible what Kevin, Logan and Fajir are doing. Like they're killing it, and they just keep getting better. They just keep getting better.
It is just amazing. I mean, I love the boxes themselves. I mean, all the extra effort that's going into just the smallest of details, where other products are just very basic. They're just punching it out and getting it up on the shelves. Your whole team seems to put so much more effort into every little part of it. So much of the stuff that I was found out later after you have the product out for a while, the little tiny things that were snuck in and makes these cards more collectible, showing how much more thought was put into the whole process.
Yeah, well, it was like, Andy and I and the team, we were like, for months, we were like, oh man, how do we make, like with Wilderness, we made the boxes like recyclable, and we're going to be, planting 20,000 trees. How do we one up that with UFO? Right. That's a dangerous game to get in because,
sure.
You can't possibly keep doing that. Right. But, and so it actually took us a long time to figure out that, I think it took a moment of insanity where I was like, why don't we just send something up into space?
Yeah.
And it was like, well, can we do that? And, then we found out that we could. We went with one company for a while, and they ended up falling through because of believe it or not, the crisis in Ukraine. Right. And so it was just like, because they were a team based out of that region, the turmoil made it impossible for them to send up rockets, clearly because the airspace was heavily regulated in that area. Right. And so we ended up sent into space kind of in the last minute, and they were super accommodating. And they're like, well, what do you guys want to do? And I was like, well, we could send up cards, it'd be the first TCG in space. And then, I was like, we could even one up it where we send up foil, and then we send it back down, and we send all this stuff back to our printers after it's been into space, and we stamp it into the booster box, right? So it was like just it, a seance. It's like, God, now what are we gonna do?
Yeah, right. So the foil that was sent up, you're actually using it for cards?
So we sent up cards into space, 120 cards, and those are being put into the booster packs that are in the product.
Oh, okay.
And they're serialized, and so you'll be able to identify them as one of the cards, the first cards that's been up in space, which is pretty cool. And then we actually sent up a roll of foil as well. And then on every booster box, if you have one, you'll see a little UFO that's stamped into the front.
I didn't know that. Okay.
And that little piece of foil is a piece of the foil that was sent up into space.
Now you got me looking. I got to look at one of the boxes there.
Yeah, so right there on the front.
Oh, this little guy here.
Yep.
There you go. Very cool. I didn't know that. See? Now the boxes are collectible too. Again, this goes back to Kickstarter where boxes are selling for what, $250? Just the empty box for a while.
Yeah, I don't really follow that particular part of the market, but I think that for UFO, I think it years and years down the line, this will be a special part of our history. And you'll notice that we didn't do away with the recyclable boxes either. So this is made out of the same material as Wilderness. It wasn't just like a one and done kind of deal.
Okay, very cool. Got a few questions for you. I caught part of you last night talking to Argos. I got jumped in at the end. I heard you talking about towers. What's the deal with towers?
Yeah, so towers are pretty simply, growing up, I was enamored with Pokemon, right? And Pokemon had this concept of gyms, and I guess I still do, right? But it was like, man, wouldn't it be cool if Pokemon like created gyms like in the real world, and there was like a lightning gym leader that was literally a real person who's a player who's considered to be the world's best lightning, or like I said in Pokemon's case, electricity, or electric, sorry, trainer, right? And they have like an electric deck and all these other things, and the gym had a badge associated with it. It had like specific swag and all this other kind of stuff. So it was like, well, with MetaZoo, we have this idea of aura, and the aura is specific to what we call Terra, which are real fourth wall environments, right? And so having towers that's like a frost tower or a flame tower, so on and so forth, it makes even more sense in the MetaZoo world than it does in the Pokemon, right? And so it's like, well, why don't we actually just create this then? And so that's what we're going to do. And it gives, it does a few things, right? It gives a focal point for players to engage in organized play beyond the local game store, and in a fashion that's official and sanctioned by MetaZoo itself, between Casters Cups, right? Which will happen every year. And because the towers will have swag and promos and product that's specific to it, and cash prizes associated with whatever events are held there. If you are a player that is playing MetaZoo, it also gives you a way of continuing to kind of bankroll your journey as a caster in the real world, right? And then the second thing that it really does is I view it as a way of elevating local game stores, where if we have a tower and within a 50-mile radius you have let's say 36 local game stores, right? Then in order to qualify to play at that tower for a specific event, you have to qualify within that 50-mile radius at a list of pre-approved local game stores. And so the tower doesn't compete with the local game stores. It actually elevates them, because you're going to have what I call tower tourism, right? Where you have people who are traveling tower to tower, and in order to play at the tower, you have to qualify at a local game store that's actually local to the tower. And again, thinking about this mechanically, like with Pokemon, it's kind of like as you go into a gym or leading up to a gym, you have to do certain things in order to actually get into the door, right? And then you get into the door of the gym, and you have to face off with other trainers and stuff. And so it's just one of those interesting things where almost by dumb luck, that format matches exactly what the MetaZoo community wants and what the lore is, and kind of what my dream is with sanctioned play.
I think that's great. And I like the fact you're talking about bringing people in as tourism, because that's my livelihood here as a museum. And we work with other museums the best you can, because you have to. If you're going to come to my museum, you're most likely going to go to another museum, another Bigfoot museum, the Cryptozoology Museum up in Portland, Maine. I mean, if you're like-minded, you're going to hit these places. Especially people who are traveling, going to want to see something unique and different. That's
in
their world,
Yeah, absolutely, right. And I would bet that as MetaZoo continues to grow, there'll just be more, not even tower specific, but just general cryptid tourism that's happening.
Yeah.
And I want to see that explode over time.
Exactly. We've been giving away a lot of your product here. People come in, and even at events, as a local elected official, I get stuck doing some ribbon cuttings and things. I was up at one at these joint where they have I'm going to get it wrong, Dollar Tree and Dollar
General.
I'll get it all wrong. Yeah, they're combining the stores now. And I had my intern out there passing out packs and talking about it. I'm trying to get her to learn the game. She's a gamer, so she's a lot smarter than me. She's 16, and but she was up there promoting it, talking, and people are loving it. I mean, people just got such a kick out of it. And even the crypto, I got guys out Bigfooting tonight. Since I'm here interviewing you, thank God you saved me. I'm not out in the woods in the heat and the bugs. Oh, by the way, we're going to get you involved. I'll talk about that later.
Yeah, for sure.
Get you out there. But I mean, these guys take it serious. Now I've got these, these are guys my age. I mean, retired cops, military stuff. They're collecting MetaZoo. I mean, and most of them are more collectors than they are players. But a couple have played in the past. They're into Magic and stuff, and now they're getting into a whole new game. If you don't expose people to it, they're not going to get an interest. You're the one that got me interested in it by sending me some product. I'm a hook.
Amazing how that works, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's also the world of collectability is different now than it was 20 years ago. You can be somebody your age or anywhere in between, 6 years old and my parents' age. My dad's 62, and it's
a kid.
It's acceptable to collect things and to play video games, and
sure.
The nerd culture is like reigning supreme across generations, which I think is probably the first time that's happened in a long time. And so, with MetaZoo, it's appealing to people of all ages, which I love to see. And I think, again, with the book and the game, the video game and the show, it'll really lock in. Like there's stuff there for adults who are the kind of the current fan base, but it'll also kind of lock in that younger generation. I think that is needed to kind of perpetuate this.
Okay, you mentioned the game and the show. Any timeline on either one?
Yeah. So okay. There's
something juicy for you to spill here.
So I mean, all this stuff is being worked on right now, and it's a matter of finding the right studios, the right publishers, so on and so forth. But like we are, quickly approaching the point, hopefully by seance or maybe a little bit after, where we'll be announcing, our partners in the space, timelines, so on and so forth. So to answer your question, I can't say anything just yet.
Right, you're still working.
soon. Yeah, I mean, if I had
free time, Mike, I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, if I had my dream, we'd have all of our partners announced by end of the year, and then maybe by end of the year, we'd also be rolling out promotional images of all these different things, and the book would be published.
Very cool. The documentary to follow.
Oh yeah, well we can avoid the. Give me a few more years for the documentary, I think.
I think this is going place. I mean, how I know Walmart's doing well. The boxes, are they in Target yet?
So they arrive next week. I know I've been saying that for a while, but I actually have the track and prove it finally. So it's just one of those things where Target has all these different requirements for child safe product that we had to qualify for. Okay. And then Smokey had its own kind of like process, you know, because they're a high pedigree brand and they're very protective of the image, as they should be. And so, you know, we had to jump through all the proper hoops, and we gladly did so, but it did extend our timeline a little bit.
I tell you, I'm like a kid. If I walk through a Walmart and I have to go through the card section, I never even looked at cards until you got me involved. And if I see a MetaZoo, I got to buy a box. Just, you know, I'm all excited like a little kid, like, ooh, you know. Pick them up, have to crack them in the car, can't wait till I get back. I'm a mess now. So something I got to mention too, totally off track.
Yeah.
I'm good at. Little function keys. F5, I guess.
Yeah.
I picked up one. I'm holding one now. I don't know if you can see. I don't know if you're watching video.
Yeah.
But I had to go for one of these. How are these selling?
Oh, that was just all right. So someone made a joke that, you know, they should have MetaZoo official refresh buttons.
Right.
So literally within 5 minutes of him saying that, I not 5 minutes, probably like 30 minutes, I had them ordered. And then they were actually shipped out like the next day. I only ordered like 150 of them or something like that. And so I think, you know, we have all these product releases and we sell 2,000 skateboards in a few minutes, and it's like, it's money, it's product. These are the kinds of things that are more inside jokes. Like, people are going to have those keys and they're going to be asked about them years down the line. They're going to be like, well, it's actually a funny story, right? That's how you build a community in a way that I think is fun, even though it's like, it's such a light touch, right? Like, only even like, man, 2 months from now, no one's really going to know about that except for the people that like bought it. And that's how quickly this information churns over, right? Like, but I love, it's like almost like putting Easter eggs in our past that can be reflected on by a community and discovered, right? Like, there will be points in time where this is where the F5 keys are discovered, and then people will forget, and then they'll rediscover it, and then people will forget, and that'll cycle through every few years. And, you know, that's part of the culture.
I think it's cool. I had to order one. I mean, I just said it's the silliest thing in the world, but I think it's brilliant. I mean, I can't even use them. I use laptops. I'm going to add it to my my collection. I've already taken pictures where I've placed it on top of a little tiny flat key, but you know, I think it's a great idea. One of the things too, I know I'm bouncing around a little bit. I want to keep on with UFO too, since that's such a big deal.
Yeah.
You were talking about doing events, or not events, but treasure hunts. Yep. You're putting things out there. Now, we did that. I think I mentioned to you last time I talked to you, besides online, was Lexington, Kentucky. But we did this with these, which I would advise not using the pipe bomb look that I went for.
You got to put a timer on it to show people what time it is when they find it. I think that'll go over well. You bring that through airport security.
Got enough flack for this, and I put them in a state park. They actually returned them.
Oh my gosh!
I know people. And basically what I would do, I wouldn't say, I wasn't using GPS exactly, but just saying in this location, somewhere near where I am, within 2,000 square feet, in plain sight, but you know, not right out, but you have to look for it. I would hide these, and then once you get it, you open it up and you can see what your spoils are, and you return the paper and my tube back to me, and you get what it was. And one of the, I was giving away for a while, there's some of the comics and things that I've gotten for you guys. But people are loving it. Sometimes it's a T-shirt, sometimes it's one of our mugs, you know, but anything like that. But I tell you, that I got to start doing it again. But that was a super draw. People loved it. It was just, you know, they'd come to, gave me an excuse to come to the museum, but I was bringing them into Medoc Mountain State Park where the guy's a Bigfooty. And, you know, I'm a town commissioner, mayor pro tem. I'm trying to bring people to town of Littleton too. So I would hide it. Like, this was perfect. I'd lay it next to a piece of conduit. People wouldn't see it. It just didn't stick out. And of course, they would just, you know, but get a different delivery system. I got to work mine out. It's the pipe bomb kind of just doesn't work too well. But even with all the stickers and stuff on it.
Yeah, I think for us, what we'll do is, you know, I'm even like, so we have the 101 cards. They're going to be in the locations of wait 1 second. Oh my gosh. Sorry, someone just sent me something very important.
Breaking news when you're talking to me, it's always good.
It's just nonstop, right? But apparently PSA is grading our sketch cards now, which is a big deal.
Oh, excellent.
So Yeah, so we have the one-on-one cards for I mean, and what better, like, again, it fits the MetaZoo lore, breaking the fourth wall, being in the real world, of cryptids being real,
Right.
to say, hey, here's treasure. And like, that's also a very, very like American thing, right? Like, here's treasure, go out and find it. And I love the idea of tapping into that like instinct that I think a lot of people have. And I think it's very similar to collector's instinct, right? Like, I think people go out with like metal detectors, have a lot more in common psychologically with like people who collect trading cards than people realize. But giving them a target and saying, hey, there's a card that's one of one out there. Maybe there are, MetaZoo gold coins buried with it, or, wherever it ends up being. It's around where the cryptids are meant to exist. Here's maybe a riddle or two, go find it, right? And I think because you also have a lot of small towns and museums that are built up around these cryptids as well, it'll drive tourism to these locations as well. Even if it's just in a small way, I want to start doing that.
Definitely. One of the things that took us a while to get, now we moved the museum from where it used to be in the old historic house, which is my retirement house. We moved it to this new building. So we went from 250 square feet to 3,700. And the air conditioner's not working. I have so many fans working. We're rectifying this issues in the building. But over there, what I got was, it took a long time to get them to put the, what do you call it? You go out with the GPSs and you go searching for, I'm totally senior moment, can't think of the name of it now. But anyway, we got a bunch of virtual ones throughout the town. They're all Bigfoot labeled. And then we have one actual box by in the bush by the house there. And that one we actually put in buttons and small little Bigfoots and other items there. And the whole idea is they come in, they'll leave a note that they were there, and of course clock it in on their GPS device or their phone they use these days, and then leave it on. But that's been another big draw, and I found that that's worked well. The more tie-ins you have, any excuse to bring people to town to have fun and do something works.
Especially in a post, fingers crossed, COVID world.
Right.
I think it's needed. I think people are like, this is the summer, this is the fall, where a lot of people are going to go out into the world again, and I want MetaZoo to be involved in some small way.
Definitely. And so now, hopefully, the gas price is finally coming down. I'm already starting to see an influx of people coming through here, and that's a big deal. I'm excited now. So legitimate. Get back to UFO a little bit. So tomorrow is the day the resellers can sell.
Yeah, well, so technically you could start selling whenever you'd like, starting today, if you are doing it on pre-order. But then, yeah, like in store, unless you're running an event, like you can run an event today and you could have run an event tomorrow, or yesterday, sorry, and you could have had product, right? But if you're not running an event, you're just selling in store, then like tomorrow's like the street date.
Okay. Yeah, we don't sell online. Everything. My whole plan is, we've talked about this, to bring people here. I want to bring people to the museum into Littleton. Yeah, I didn't get much actually. I was on the partner list, and I just already ordered stuff early. What do they call it? The war box on Golden, and so I didn't want to over order stuff. So I think that's why I didn't order directly through MetaZoo, which next time I'll make sure I check with you before I do that, find out where I'm ordering.
No. That's fine. I mean, you would have gotten it cheaper from us, but
yeah.
Did you sign up for the LGS kits?
Yes.
Okay, those should be arriving today or tomorrow or something like that. But yeah, no. Always feel free to talk to me. I'm a person, right? So like you can just reach out to me.
And we can't bring huge orders in too. I mean, we're literally a mom and pop museum. It's not like we have state funding or anything like that. Mail comes out of my pocket right now. But,
yeah, well, that and yeah. So being aware of that, like there are certain partners that can't wing. Like obviously, you're different than the biggest LGS in Denver, right? They have certain requirements, certain minimums. I'm not gonna say that you have to buy 500 booster boxes unless you want to.
When we can, we will. Trust me. You got, I wouldn't embarrass you, but you got to see the back room here. It's the future conference room, but it's kind of a catch-all. We make our own shirts and stuff. I have a whole wall of MetaZoo stuff, and most of it's mine, like personal stuff. Things I've collected, pins, and actually I've got one of the Bigfoot pins here. I mean, you've created an addict here. I mean, so.
If I remember, so I watched your YouTube video of you exploring the new space. I think you said it was your daughter that does the tarot card reading.
Yeah, my oldest daughter, Holly. Yep.
So we got to get her some MetaZoo tarot cards because we're doing something with eBay seance. So I'll send some of those so that she can use them and have them available to her clients. I think that'd be cool.
That'd be great. Yeah, actually, she was talking at one point about us doing a set of tarot cards and using me as the artwork, posing in all the ridiculous poses. So
kind of like a fireman's calendar.
Don't have to poke their eyes out.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's great. I mean, yeah, that's the whole thing though. You're thinking outside the box all the time. You're always reaching out for something different, and that's what's just great about it.
It's because I love this stuff, man. Like,
yeah,
people don't understand. Like, they look at my background. Oh my gosh, someone just sent me something.
More breaking news. Let's get it.
Yeah. Well, check the Discord. Hold on. Well, in just a second, let me tell you when. All right, yeah, 1 second. Okay, give me 1 second. Yes. Okay.
Your announcements?
Hold on. All right. 1 second. You're gonna love this.
You see, wow, I'm speechless, but my computers are slow, so it's taking a minute. I can't respond, by the way. Just give me some error.
So the boards for the first time with Revive are holographic, which is pretty cool.
Oh, they're beautiful boards.
Yeah.
Yeah, something I'm having an issue with Discord. I don't think it's you guys. I think it's me. It's not recognizing my phone now. I'm such a technical genius.
Yeah, when I think about you, I'm like, yeah, that person's definitely top class when it comes to tech. Yeah, no, that's cool. Revive is such a cool little collab, right? Collaboration. Anyway, so yeah, I'm gonna put my phone away so I don't get more awesome distractions.
Yeah, this is fun.
It kind of gives you an idea of like the cadence of what my day to day is, where it's just like a constant flood of information, which is honestly, it's how I operate. It's like, and it's how a lot of the MetaZoo staff operates as well. Kind of like birds of a feather.
Yeah. I'm just looking through some of my notes here quickly. One of the things I've noticed is with the product across the board, because of the recession and things, everything's kind of gone down in price a little bit. I've noticed it's a good time now for anyone like myself who missed some of the early product. When I was in early, you got me in very early with the Kickstarter. So, but one of the things I was all about and still trying to grab now, and I've gotten a few, should be coming in the mail, is some of the black border cards. And some of those are not the foils, the non-foils have come down pretty reasonable. So I know you guys don't like talking about aftermarket, but that's the only way to get them at this point.
Yeah, I think I heard that, with MetaZoo, even the big three, everything is dipping, right, because of the recession. But right. we're dipping less than Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic, which is pretty incredible.
It's a good time to buy. Those things that you couldn't get before that went up in price, and we all know it's going to go flying back up. So I think UFO is going to be a big turn on that too. I think that anyone who starts seeing these cards is going to be very, very impressed.
Oh, and it's kind of like, it's one of those first sets. It's the first set that we've done that is really appealing just by name, right? To people outside of the cryptozoology community, outside of the TCG community. so on and so forth.
I agree.
So I think it's going to bring in a lot of new people.
It's actually one of the things in the museum we're trying to do. We are trying to bring more. We have some UFO stuff. As a matter of fact, I got one of the aliens behind me. I brought in just because of you for the interview. I'll go back out in the museum after this. But that's a huge draw. Anything that we have is UFO type. We've had a great UFO story about, I guess it's about 20 some miles above us, just in Virginia at South Hill. It was back in, I think it was 1967, where a silver craft landed. No creatures, but left a burn mark and took back off. Multiple witnesses, state police were involved. But I was lucky to be able to find a old UFO magazine that still has all the original photos from the local newspaper and stuff.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, I'll send you a copy of it.
Please do. So there are, I'm sure you know this, one of the cool things about what MetaZoo is doing is the history of cryptids is like, it's really, really delicate in the sense that there's not a lot of the stuff exists in newspapers that may or may not be on record. And it exists in books that were not printed all that heavily. Right. And so like there's a book that I have two books on my shelf. There are about what I would call 6 Genesis cryptid books from the late 1800s to about 1935 or 1938, where it mentions for the first time fearsome critters, Paul Bunyan. Like these are like the original books where these folklore tales were kind of jotted down and published for the first time. And there are not that many out there. And I think because like cryptid history actually isn't that old. And I think it's not, with the exception of museums like yours, like, I don't know, man, it's not like if you look at like automobile, like people who have like that fan base, right? That collectible fan base. They have everything categorized and cataloged, and all that, day to day, they can tell you like what was in production and what wasn't. They have all those numbers, and that's just by nature of kind of the industrial side of what it takes to go into making cars and stuff. And but with cryptids, like I feel like with exceptions of like bright shining lights like your museum, there hasn't been care taken in terms of kind of protecting that history or boosting that signal, right? Like, so I think even the term fearsome critters, like I've spoken to a lot of cryptid fans who love Mothman and Bigfoot and whatnot, and it's a new term for them. Mm-hmm. But cryptids, like, when that term was first coined?
Yeah,
I think it was in like 1978. And so the term fearsome critters existed at least a half a century earlier than the word cryptid, right? Or the study of cryptozoology. And so that makes it hard, right? You can't search for books or articles or anything like that where you say, hey, what's the oldest published book on cryptids? And it pops up because it's in the title, right? They were called these different things like fearsome critters, or, there are a few other ones I can't, say off the top of my head. But, and then someone said 50, 60, 80 years later, they're like, oh, let's call this whole study of creatures we think exist but don't cryptozoology. So there's this weird disconnect. But going back to your statement about the original photos and whatnot, I'm also collecting newspapers that I find online where it's the first published instances of, for instance, the Flatwoods Monster or the Pascagoula River alien, right? Like Pascagoula. Like these newspapers are out there, and very, very few people are taking care of them. So it's like, damn, like, what would it take to create the most like robust, comprehensive cryptid library of original sources? And I think that's what I want to do in my free time, is like curate these sources, like the original ones, as they exist, like not digital copies, but like the actual newspapers and stuff and the books, and create a library of it and then digitalize it. And there's some really great resources out there already, but so I'm kind of But anyways, that was kind of a weird tangent. But you when you said that you had the original newspaper, it like ignited my passion a little bit.
Another story here that was sent to me, and this I don't have original. It's one of the ones that they found it online, but it's a story coming back from Littleton. You can know I'm not from here, from New York. You can tell by the accent. Used to be a journalist at Daily News down here, escaping New York and high taxes and stuff. Anyway, someone sent me back. I don't have it in front of me. If I knew we were going down this path, I would have dug it up. I think it was 1912, 1918, an article about finding this hairy man in the woods, and they brought him to the Halifax County Jail for safety. And they basically said he had a healthy appetite, and they could teach him to dance, but they couldn't teach him to smoke a cigarette. But he was found in the area here. This area is still, I mean, you can get little tiny towns here. Littleton's incorporated village is only 650 people. But I mean, you go outside, there's other small towns, not till you get to like I-95 or Roanoke Rapids, this is 16 miles away. There's lots of wooded area here, I mean, tons. And it's, you know, logging's one of the big industries down here. And the stories are just nonstop. The indigenous people, the Halawasponi tribe and stuff, refer to them as Midnight Howler, Catamount, Creek Devil, Boogeyman. Boogeyman's a common one, just generic. That kind of covers everything. Another one, I don't have an article on that. There's a story that goes back. I have multiple people come in to talk to me about it, and they're always very leery, you know, to come in and actually discuss it. They're kind of afraid to be pigeonholes that nut. But the Littleton Pigfoot, and now we have a genetics lab down, which they stripped all the signage off. Even now, if you look on Google Earth, it no longer says Smithfield's Genetics Lab. And supposedly they're engineering leaner pigs. Why would you want a leaner pig? I have no idea. But the story is there where they hear this weird screaming at night, and they found these weird footprints out there. And one of the last stories that came in, which is not that long ago, I'd say it's only about maybe 5 months old, maybe 6 tops. A gentleman came with his son. I was fairly busy in the museum, and he came up to me and started telling me how he saw this creature, and he's down on the same area where this genetics lab is. They were hunting, they were tracing their deer with blood droplets, and also they get to this area, and they notice an area back there where like nothing grows, and the deer is gone. It's like, would it get better and leave? And off the distance, they see movement, and they watch, and this thing runs through the woods, once again, kind of like upper torso, head like a pig, bottom torso sort of more humanish looking, you know, obviously just more pinkish, kind of, you know, almost kind of a naked human pig sort of hybrid running through. So I'm trying to take him aside and go, I need to sit down. Can I film you? And he goes, no, I got to go. I got to go. And out he went. He said, I'll come back. And unfortunately, I haven't seen him again. And I've driven down that road a couple of times trying to, hopefully I'll recognize the guy out mowing his lawn or something, go out and talk to him. But the stories around here are just nonstop. And they go back well over 100 years.
Right. And what's amazing is it's still happening, right? Like I forgot what I think it was in Texas, right? Just this past month, there was security footage camera of what people are calling a skinwalker, right? It went viral all over the internet. Cryptids, cryptozoology is folklore, it's mythology in action, right? Like this is our history and it's happening like right now. And that's just such a cool thing, right? Like you can look at the Greek gods and like it's almost like that story's been told, right? And that story's like over. I'm sure there are still people who worship the Greek gods, but there's nothing happening in the real world that expands that mythos, that mythology, right? Whereas the story of cryptids in the US and abroad with things like yokai in Japan, it's a very active thing. That mythology, that mythos, that folklore is like constantly growing and expanding because it's like it's such an ingrained part of like human culture, where you know you go out into the forest, you see something spooky, you can't really explain it, you tell people about it. Like that's like what more like human is that, like is that, right? So it's fascinating to me, and I think it's such an underexplored phenomenon in our like collective history and day-to-day life that, you know, I think the reason why I was like, let's do, instead of doing like a new IP or creating creatures, I was like, I think if we do something with cryptids, it'd be the first time really on an international scale that we could provide like a lightning rod, and bring all these people together, right? Because, you know, maybe like the people who know about the Lake Worth monster may not know about the Fresno night crawlers, but now they do. That's pretty cool. it's pretty cool. And it's pretty cool that you can reach across the states in some cases, and in other cases, the entire world, and share that collective experience where it's like, oh, I didn't see the Fresno night crawlers, but I do know the story of the Lake Worth monster. And it's like, oh, I shared that with you now, even though you're so far away from me. MetaZoo provides that experience. And it's such a cool, like, I can't take credit for it in the sense that, like, because it exists in the world, it's like way beyond me, but I'm glad that I could play like a little part in it.
Oh, you've done great. You brought it to attention. I've even learned about some creatures. I'm into this. I've been a sinker into cryptozoology forever. I mean, even working for the New York Daily News, I convinced my boss to let me go out and do paranormal things. I did a piece on the Jersey Devil and one up on Bigfoot up in Whitehall, New York. It's New York paper, so they want to stay in the tri-state area. But even digging through your cards and going like, never heard of this one. I have to go do the research and go find out. So you've done an excellent job. You really have. We got to do a killer map. I'll help you with that. That's something we got to do.
So there's this guy who created Map in Black, and it's this super extensive, just beautifully done. I think he's a cryptographer.
Ran into him, yes.
Cartographer. Really super talented guy. I think his name is John or Pete. I forgot what it is, Paul. And I think I'm just naming apostles now, but just really incredible stuff. And man, I've been trying for 2 years now to get this guy to help us make our map. And you know, the map that I created for base set, which you have behind you,
yep.
It's like, I look at it and I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then I look at Map in Black and I'm like, but even like, even Map in Black, like, as incredible as it is, like, there's so much stuff missing just because you have to, like, I'm creating a map. So I'm writing the book, right? And, you know, Sam, Rose, and Ben, they and Love, like they travel across the US. Mostly it's the East Coast going into the Midwest and then into Appalachia, right? But so every town that they pass through, every road that they pass through, I'm like, all right, so they're in Kentucky and they're on, you know, East 70 or whatever it is, like, and they're passing this small town. Are there any cryptids or ghost stories or urban legends associated with this small town or this piece of road? And it's such, like, and most of the time, no joke, there is, right? And so after these books are written, I might have the most comprehensive East Coast and Appalachia map out there. But anyway, so it's crazy. It's crazy that even if you wanted to, you couldn't put it all down on paper, I don't think. And especially since it's this living, breathing thing. You know, it's impossible to kind of put your finger on. And I think that's kind of the magic of it.
Yeah, our most recent sighting, Bigfoot wise, here is just over a month old on Thelma Road. I mean, it's just constant. I don't know if you saw the interview I got with Jesse Walker, which is a house that's literally across the street from where the new museum is. And that's just about a little over 2 years old. And he had a sighting 1 o'clock in the afternoon. That was an older gentleman that actually cried through the interview when I interviewed. Horrified. And these are people that are not Bigfooters. And then, like, the guys looking for Bigfoot out in the woods today, they'll be real lucky if they catch something or hear something, get a tree down, whatever, a rock thrown at them, something like that. But these are people walk out, and like Jesse walked out in his backyard to put something in the garbage can. He saw this thing in the woods behind his house, freaked out.
and that, like, you can't really act out that terror, right? Like, if you read or if you listen to the original, like, audio about people with, like, the Mothman sightings, like, those were people who were just objectively terrified, and they saw something that they didn't know, they couldn't understand. And, you know, and what's interesting is a lot of these people are you know, God-fearing people. And so for them to within that God-fearing world or that worldview, for them to think like there's something outside of, you know, that kind of like heaven hell dynamic, like, because like, so that, like, maybe I'm projecting personally, but like what terrified me about Mothman as a child was it was almost like existential in nature, where it was like, I was like, all right, I'm raised Catholic. I know about heaven, I know about hell, angels and demons. but now there's like this other thing that isn't explained by either of those things. And like Mothman is like this almost like, I didn't know the word interdimensional at the time, but it was like this thing that could predict the future, and like who the hell is Indrid Cold. And so it was my first exposure to like kind of like that horizontal plane between heaven and hell that I kind of created in my head as a young Catholic boy, right? So anyways, maybe that's a little TMI, but like that's why Mothman is so like ingrained in my brain, is because I hadn't thought about such an entity actually existing in the real world ever before that. And it was like, it like rewired my brain a little bit.
I agree. And the Mothman stories are such an amazing one, you know, and just the tragedy involved with it. Silver Bridge going down. Now, a guy has become a friend of mine who comes fishing. Lives right across the river on the Ohio side. TJ, give out his name. TJ's a great guy. And he was supposed to come to my Paracon and speak about Mothman and growing up with it. He lived across the way. He told me when he was a kid, he just retired from working at the college over there. I don't remember the name of the college. But he said his parents would come out and say, "You got to come in at dusk. The bird will get you." It was never called Mothman back then, but they would see this prehistoric type bird flying around, and they were horrified. And it tended to come out more at dusk. And I wanted him to come tell his story, and then I found out. So I won't go into it. I'll let him tell. But he lost family members off the bridge. I guess everyone pretty much lost somebody. There's a small community like Littleton is.
Yep. Yeah.
But empty schools, teachers there. Sorry, yeah. Weather reports on my phone here. You got thunder going outside.
No, and that's also the tricky thing, right? Like, and we're navigating this like in so many different ways, where like these are real stories in the real world, the real people. Often these people are still alive, or their loved ones are, and it's like, how do you take something like Mothman, and which was kind of the harbinger of this very, very tragic event, many people who were impacted, like they're still alive, right? And then how do you kind of like, I'm going to create a cute piece of art and throw it into a game, and you know, Mothman is one example, but like almost all these cryptids, like the cryptozoology is a dark place in many instances, and so we have to tread carefully. But it's almost like if we tread too carefully, or if we're trying to be 100% respectful of the history and those people, then we can't make a game, because we couldn't touch almost any of these cryptids. Like we couldn't create any characters from them, and then we wouldn't be able to tell the history in a lot of ways, right? Like I have somebody, and it manifests itself in interesting ways, right? I have somebody who told me that he's going on a Tinder date. He's going on a date with a girl, and he's actually driving from Cincinnati to the Loveland Castle to show her the Loveland Castle. It's kind of like a getaway date, right? And he learned about the Loveland Castle from the stories, even though he grew up in Cincinnati, you know, his whole life, right? And it's just like, so that person, you know, is creating new memories from an old story. I don't know. I think it's cool. And I think one way of paying respects to some of these more delicate subjects is by creating new memories about what the folklore is. And I don't know, it's like Disney taking the horrible stories of the Grimm's brothers and like removing the decapitation of the ugly, you know, stepsisters and putting it into a children's story, right? Like there was at one point a small German town where that story was like real, and the people impacted by it were real, or, you know, so it's like, it's delicate ground to tread on. And if you look at my interviews from like 2 years ago, I mentioned this as well, and it hasn't changed, and there are more eyes on us than ever. And so it's interesting ground to navigate, I think.
I agree. Well, that kind of brings me around to something I'd love to offer you. I'd like to get you out here. First, I'd love you to come to the museum in Littleton, but let's get you out Bigfooting. Let's take you out there. And I'm going to try to post some things in. I don't have anything here, but we've gotten a lot of paranormal activity there. Actually, one day we're out there with a group of guys. One of them goes running down the hill. Goes, "Did you see that?" I said, "See what? What is that?" Just don't chase things. And we use thermal cameras. I've got so many of these. My wife knew she'd shoot me. And these are really good, the AGMs, by the way. And so I had one around my neck, thank God. I was prepared. So I turn it on. So he goes running down the hill and he goes, "Do you hear that?" I said, "Yeah, but I don't see anything." By then my scope was on. I'm looking down, I can clearly see him standing 75 feet from this tree. Behind the tree, I can see heat generating. So I can't see the thing, but I can see there's something warm behind the tree. So there's something behind that tree. And then it steps out and it looks like, I'm yelling at him, it's humanoid standing right there, but it's not that dark where I can't see it. I'm looking down, I can clearly see him and I can't see this. I can only see it through the scope. And I got photos of it. And the thing looked like a Confederate soldier. I'll have to send you that. It has a strap going across. It is the craziest thing. So I'm yelling down at him. And later when I zoom in, we're still using the flare scopes. So you had to download it. You couldn't work with it in real time. Now these things actually talk to your phone. But you look at the eyes are like luminescing back, and this thing doesn't give off light. It detects heat. It was the weirdest thing. Freaked me out. I mean, talk about making the hair in the back of your neck go up. And then it just kind of moved back and it was gone. So we literally were down there looking. We ran up, now it's getting dark. We got searchlights. We're down there looking for footprints. But all we found was ours. And it's like a little wet area where a creek goes through. It was the strangest thing. Later, we found out that told us there's some Confederate graves in that area. They're not even marked.
Yeah. And I think, in the metal detecting community, if you look, it's very, very common to find the remnants, often, items of great personal value and importance of these soldiers, like just in random fields. The Civil War, I don't think people understand how big the Civil War was in terms of how widespread it ravaged the country, or the Revolutionary War for that matter, right? Yeah, I'd love to come down. And in fact, I think I mentioned this in the Discord. I want to do a tour, right? And I have like local game stores on that tour, but the places that I want to hit the most, and that, I'm still determining like what local game stores I want to go to, but the places that I'm going to, no matter what, are going to be the different museums, right? So yeah. And I want to spend a day or two in each location. I'm more of like a fall guy though. Like if I were to go out, if I were to go out,
it's hot now. It's been unbearable. Yeah. Trust me.
Like I like the four seasons. I tend to stay inside during the summer. So if I'm going to be doing a tour, it'll likely be in, the second half of September, into the second half of October. And maybe it's the tour ahead of seance, right? So
sure,
we'll see how it goes. But I'll definitely, I'll be reaching out and we can figure some stuff out.
I think we love it. Get you hooked on it. Just like you got me hooked on the cards, I'll get you hooked out there, Bigfooting, investigation. You're walking around the flare scope everywhere you go. Even when I was to Lexington, Kentucky, I brought all my equipment with me. I wasn't sure where I'd be going or doing anything there. So Crypticon was great, by the way. I love that.
Yeah, we have to do it. We're gonna be there again this year. I want to make it more of a point. I want to give the MetaZoo fans more of an incentive to attend, right? So if I could get hundreds of MetaZoo fans going there this year, in support of the larger cryptid community, right? I think that would be a massive, massive win. So that's kind of like my goal for this year with CryptiCon.
Sounds good. I'm debating. I was thinking of going to actually sitting at the table to promote the museum at some of these events, but the only thing about that it locks me in. I'm kind of stuck at my table. I'd rather be to wander and come and go.
You want to have fun, yeah. You want to go. Yeah,
find your table helping you for a few hours. I'd rather do that. I could still escape and go out, and I had a good day. That one, the last night's there, I ended up hitting the bar. It was the night after I had dinner with you guys, and from there, after I left you guys, I went up to the bar in the regular hotel, the less fancy one than that nice restaurant we went to, and I ended up hanging out with Huckleberry, Adam Davies, and Cliff Barrettman. And I haven't drank that much since I was a kid. It was the artists behind. I was sending drinks over to them, some of the kids over there. But I have to send you a photo of that. It was a crazy photo of us all shit-faced and grinning and having a good
time. I drank that weekend way too much cryptid-themed whiskey and spirits. But it was a lot of fun, and it was great meeting people who, because like you have to. I don't know if you remember, but like before the TCG community took on, like I was reaching out to cryptid people. And so like, Sarah from the Snallygaster Museum, she was just starting up literally like as I was starting up MetaZoo. And so like I was in, if you look, hard enough, you'll find that I was in all the different cryptozoology circles, getting to know these people. And so for me, the CryptiCon was kind of like a who's who of the Instagram profiles that I was kind of stalking. And I found you by searching Cryptozoology Museum on Google. And I was and so a bunch of different, things came up and I was like, oh, this one looks cool. And so I reached out. Right. So there's a lot of research that went into this stuff that I think a lot of people don't know about, but it's honestly the earliest history of the marketing that I did for MetaZoo.
It's amazing how far MetaZoo has come. And what has it been, a little over a year?
Our first set, officially released. So first edition base set, the one that was, at local game stores and stuff, a year ago this Saturday.
Wow, that's amazing.
Well, this Sunday. So yeah, we'll be at the Roswell event, having fun. And it's like, man, what we've accomplished in 1 year.
Yeah.
Imagine where we're going to be in another year, right? And by then the game, the show, and the book will all be out or coming out. And I can't imagine, it's a wild ride. And we're just like, we're getting started, and there's so much, like, people are like, oh, they're already excited about Yokai Island, but it's like, if you look at the sets that we have planned, we've spent 1 year in Cryptid Nation, right? 1 year. And we have 2 more years of Cryptid Nation related activities before we move to Yokai Island in 2024. So that gives you an idea, like we're 1/3 of the way through what we want to do here in the US before we move the sets over across, the ocean.
I got to bring you down memory lane here. I don't know if the camera's going to pick these up well. Do you remember this event?
Yeah. The
fundraiser with Steve.
Yeah.
You sucking me into these. This is a piece of history because you can get the stuff in the back talking about the event.
Yeah.
But those are like some of my favorites. I mean, I'm not saying value-wise, but because things are just really starting to take off. I was sitting there, I remember trying to figure out how to get on, what was it, Whatnot or whatever the heck it was. I mean, like, I have to learn more damn programs just to keep up with you guys. And now, people come in and go, Discord? You have Twitch on? It's like, and but I was able to get in there, and it was just a lot of fun to get into that whole thing and to be a piece of that. I mean, I thought I was nuts for spending that kind of money, but it was for charity, so it's all good for good things. It's not.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But just and I think it was a week later when you announced Steve was coming on board.
Yeah, no, I mean, and Steve was behind the scenes for a while, but lawyers, they got to buy those boats, right? So it took us a while to figure out all the details and get everything buttoned up. So he was involved. I think we literally announced it a year ago this Sunday. So when we released the set at Nationals last year in Chicago, we also announced simultaneously that Steve would be involved. So, or that he was a co-founder and partner, right? So, man, but he was actually involved as early as I think January. He reached out. He slid into my DMs, and I remember I was with my girlfriend at the time, and it was like midnight or 1 a.m. or whatever ridiculous. It was probably like 3 p.m. in Bangkok, wherever Steve was DJing at the time. But he messaged me and he was like, "I love MetaZoo. Let's talk." So, and then I turned over to my girlfriend at the time, and I was like, "Wake up, wake up." So anyways, again, but all this, it seems like ancient history to me right now, but it's not. It's like this is like freshman year, basically, right? Is the way that I'm starting to think about it. Like we're entering into our sophomore year for the next 2 years. And it was just the first year. It's crazy to think about it.
So the original Kickstarter was at $1,800. I got that right?
18,000, right? And I put about 100 to 150,000 of my own money into it. The Kickstarter thing was initially just to get people involved and excited, right? And I was kind of upset because somebody said, because I posted about, you can find this all on my Reddit posts, on the official MetaZoo account 2 years ago. I was posting about this in like tabletop communities on Reddit, on like gameplay design, game design. I was like, I want to create a TCG, and I'm telling you right now, up until MetaZoo, if you told anyone in the tabletop design, game board communities or anything like that, with people who make games, right, and have for the past 20 years, that you wanted to create a TCG, they would call you all sorts of names, which I won't repeat, but you can actually find them in the comments. But they would basically say that you're insane and that it's a fool's errand because no new TCG has been successful in the past 20 years. You have the big three, and then you have the occasional blips on the radar from Dragon Ball Z or Digimon that they come for a few sets and they disappear, right, for a few more years, and then they come up, like, but only the big three. You can only have Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Pokemon. Anyone else that thinks that they can do it, basically you're an idiot, right? And that kind of upset me. And it was a lot of it was the Kickstarter community, which still doesn't accept us. Like I don't want to get into that, but to put this into context, we raised $2 million for our poker cards on Kickstarter. No one wrote about it. No official word from Kickstarter about being the second largest poker card game campaign ever launched there. It wasn't under Projects You Love. It wasn't on the front page. There was nothing written about it, right? And now, because of MetaZoo's success, Kickstarter must have had in the past year alone, Kickstarter must have made several $1 million in the fees that they charge, because they charge 10 to 15%. And so if you think about all the multi-millions of dollars that have been raised on Kickstarter and this new Kickstarter craze as a result of MetaZoo's success, like they've made a pretty penny. So, it's kind of petty of me to have done that, where I was like, they say that I can't create a TCG, I'm going to create a TCG. They say you can't do a TCG on Kickstarter, I'm going to do it on Kickstarter. And I kind of forced the issue, and I'm glad that I did. I'm glad that I didn't back down. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking.
That's right. And that's funny. I was going to go to the cards, just to show the difference in the year from 18,000 to you've got $1 million in like 24 hours of playing cards, right?
Yeah.
I remember writing to you going, "Is this a record?"
Yeah.
I was just blown away.
Out of the hundreds of maybe even thousands of campaigns for playing cards on Kickstarter, we are the second highest ever.
Wow.
So yeah.
So when are they shipping out? So I'm trying to hit the card questions people ask me to ask.
Oh yeah, of course. They are shipping out next week, God willing. It's if we were printing these ourselves, right, these would have been shipped out months ago. But when you want to work with partners, you want to form those relationships, not everyone moves at the same pace that you do. And we had to switch partners halfway through because the quality wasn't, I won't say that, because what we were asking for from our first partners wasn't something that they could deliver in the way that we wanted to, right? That's the diplomatic way of putting it. And so we reached out to Faded Spade via our partnership with World Poker Tour, and they were very gracious. And then Chipco was making the chips. Like it's going to be a super high quality product. It's going to be a super fun product, and it's going to spread MetaZoo like crazy because it's a MetaZoo product, right? But it's going to show up on every sort of poker table that you can imagine. And people are going to look at it and they'd be like, what the heck is this? Right.
Right.
And so it's just another way of getting the word out there. It's like, I wanted it to ship earlier. But when it does ship, the quality is like, it's fantastic. Right. And people are going to be blown away, and it's going to be sooner than people think, right? It's going to be in the next week or two that they're actually going to have it in hand. So it's kind of nice.
I'm all excited. I jumped in big on it. I just, it was going to be a big deal. So I couldn't even remember what I added to my list at this point. And I'm old, I'm feeble. I can't keep track of things.
No, I don't say that.
Let me just go through real quick. Vending machine.
Yeah, not just a vending machine, one that, kind of like we do with local game store kits that we would make available. They'd have special product. Museums, local game stores, partners would have access to them. The coins would be the way that you access them. Now, how do you create a kind of a modified or custom thing like that? How do you make it so a local game store or partner just can't crack it open, steal the cards and sell them on eBay? These are all things that, like, for a lot of these things, I have a whim and I'm like, or I have an idea, and on a whim, I post about it. And then I go to our printer or I go to our team and I'm like, so how do we do this? Let's think about that now that it's public and everyone is expecting it. And most of the time that's worked. For the vending machines, it's kind of like the cards. The vending machines that I want existed 25 years ago, but the institutional knowledge to recreate them, I'm not even sure if those people are still alive. They're certainly not being made now, right? And so it's interesting because we're going to have to kind of innovate a little bit. It's a good thing that I have the background that I have, and we actually have, we can break open these old ones and see what we can do. The trick is it's going to be a combination of the older tech with the new tech, where when you put a coin in, how do you verify that it's a MetaZoo coin, right? So that's kind of the kicker. But yeah, vending machines are going to be part of MetaZoo's history, and I think they're going to be one of the most fun parts of MetaZoo history.
It's pretty cool. We actually have an art gallery in town. They have an old cigarette machine, and it's Auto something, and I don't remember the name. But basically, the artwork is made by artists. Some is like could be jewelry or earrings or a bracelet. But others are basically it's a piece of cardboard folded, or whatever. It's the size of a cigarette pack, the old cigarette packs. And you have to get a coin for $5, and they give you a slug that goes into this machine, and you pull at the old cigarette machine, and the thing drops in, and it's all different artists. So you get to pick. I think it's the cutest thing in the world. And the art place. I mean, you're lucky if you find something for $300-400 on the wall. Here for $5, you get to walk out with something from this artist. I think it's a great idea.
I mean, yeah, the tech is there. Otherwise, like arcades wouldn't be able to, or any tech that relies on location-specific tokens wouldn't be able to function, right? People would just be able to come in and spoof it, and there are ways of spoofing it, of course, right? But so we're developing it. It's one of those things that'll take time. But I think, if you and I were talking, if you and I do another interview for when we release, what are we releasing this time next year? It'll be War Set this time next year. Geez. I think we'll be talking about how the rollout of the vending machines did, and you'll have one behind you instead of that alien dude. Maybe you'll have one behind you with a bunch of figurines that we've made sitting on top of it, right? So just one of those things that, there are a lot of those things that exist today that for a long part of our history, which is funny to say because it's only been a year or two of our history, were kind of like promised or hinted at, and then people were like, when's this coming? But now they're like commonplace, right? I think for the first year, I hinted at tops being a dream of mine, and now we're about to release the third set of tops, right? So it's just one of those things that in the next year, vending machines and
I'm all ready.
There you go, yeah. Vending machines and kind of the path to releasing them will be ancient history, and will be kind of dictating the conversation. Will be how the release went and how they're part of our culture now.
That's crazy. One more thing I just want to go. You come to the museum, of course. We talk about promo cards.
Yeah. So part of the treasure hunt will be, it'll like the treasure hunt one cards will go out, but then also the museum specific promo cards will go out as well. So it'll be like one big month of like tourism that we want to drive.
Okay, with UFO and the new stuff now that people are going to know, I guess, I don't know who know, I didn't know until you told me today that this little UFO here is actually foil that you actually sent into space that every box has.
Yeah.
So a little piece of history on every UFO box. Boy, these are hard to shoot. They're so reflective. Wow.
Yeah.
They're beautiful boxes, though. They really are.
I'm really proud of it.
I opened one of these boxes. You see, I did a box break.
Yeah.
And after I did it, I got yelled at by people. I go, was I supposed to wait for that too? Every time
no.
I didn't sell it. I'm just opening it.
No, of course. We're growing as a community. I'll say that, right? So we're growing as a community, and I think we're feeling out this new space of like map and street date and what all the big boys do, and the bigger, the big three TCGs. They all have these rules. Sure. This is the first time that we're implementing these rules with MetaZoo. So it's a new space, and we're navigating it.
Well, don't be surprised you get a message from me going, I don't understand.
No, please.
I don't have the time to always get on Discord, and I go out to see if I have issues now. But so it's hard for me sometimes to follow, and I don't know if that's other people having that issue too, or it's just because I'm mildly retarded. But
I don't think you've ever once come across my radar as doing something wrong ever. So I think you instinctively or instinctively,
my case,
just kind of like, I think you're a good vendor, and that's pretty rare, and you're not trying to make millions of dollars off of MetaZoo, and I think that
the way to do it, let me know.
you got to get the sample cards, man. I'm kidding. So yeah, I think you're doing it the right way, and I think you're building the community. I mean, like I've been telling you for over a year now. I think you're a tremendous asset to the cryptid community, and I think we need to start, now that we have the fourth set, and once Seance rolls around, I really want to start focusing on this winter, really elevating the cryptid community, because I don't think I've been doing enough.
That'd be great. We'll get you out here. We'll do some cross promotions and figure things out, whatever you want to do. And it'd be huge for us. I think it'd be helpful to MetaZoo, and it'd be really good for the town of Littleton, this little tiny town that had. I'd love to see Littleton become like a place for MetaZoo, known for MetaZoo.
Yeah, it's on the map, right? Like what we're doing with Roswell is we are taking MetaZoo in Roswell, and we are just like, we're taking the UFO product and we're just like blasting it all over that small town.
I'd love to get your logo or MetaZoo painted on the front of the building too, just to be part of the history.
I'm sure when we go there, if one of the artists joins, they'd love to do even if like a mural type of thing. I think would be cool.
That'd be excellent. That'd be cool.
Yeah. And I mentioned this actually to a few people last fall. The timing didn't end up being right, but I want to announce with a bunch of people like you in the cryptid community, I want to announce a nonprofit for the cryptid community that kind of takes this message that we're talking about elevating the cryptid community, and like puts money behind it, puts some real backing behind it, uses our connections, so on and so forth. Because if MetaZoo gets through the next 2 years and therefore 3 years of Cryptid Nation block, and the cryptid community isn't 100 times larger than it was in 2021, then we've done something seriously wrong. So
it's going to grow.
Yeah, it's already growing like crazy. I mean,
it's an addicting game. It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't learned to play, and I'm trying to actually learn.
Yeah, it's well, if you want to learn how to play, we are going to have a huge competition next year with a lot of money on the line. First place is
$1 million, right?
1.25 million. First place gets 500,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Has any other game ever done that?
Not like we broke records with our Cashers Cup that we just did with $250,000, where first place got $101,000 cash. That doesn't include all the prizing and stuff, right? And that broke records. So I want to, every year, I want to make it a lot more, to the point where not only are we breaking records, but like we're 10 times bigger than anything that the other TCGs are doing. I mean, esports, I think I mentioned this yesterday on Argos's thing. Esports they have cash prize pools of $50 million. Why can't TCGs do that? You know, change people's lives.
So you mentioned gold coins before, doing some of the actual coins, which I had up here before. I don't know where I did with it. New ones I had up here before.
They're almost.
I love the UFO ones. The UFO ones are my favorites, but I mean, actually
yeah.
doing something with these, it would actually be of real valuable metals.
So those are releasing very soon, actually, very, very soon. They're being, so at San Diego Comic-Con, our partner is WIP, What's Your Passion? They had displays of MetaZoo jewelry cast in gold, silver.
Right, I got
right? And they're also doing our bullion. So it's coming very, very soon.
Something we've got in, which is selling pretty well. Have you done bobbleheads yet?
No, but if you know the company, message me on Discord with like, if you have their contact, I'll reach out to them.
It's funny, is you guys have dabbled in so many things. I bought 2 of the watches. I bought sneakers. I mean, things I never in my life thought I'd be picking up. But we're going to set up in the museum here. Eventually, I'm going to set up one display just for the history of MetaZoo and just talk about it. And that's because I love the game, but because of you giving me get me involved and give me some Kickstarter up front, I was able to use that money to help get us into this building. I think I need to honor you and MetaZoo for helping the museum move forward after COVID and so on. So.
Yeah, I love that idea. And I think, you know, even though we're doing like all these crazy verticals, like I saw at CryptidCon, there's so much creativity going into creating cryptid related products that people don't even know about. And so that's like, there's some disconnect there where it's like, there are people brewing beer, you know, doing like whiskey, doing soap, doing like all these cryptid things. And the MetaZoo community doesn't know about them, and they don't know about the MetaZoo community. So it's like, there's this weird, like we have to start building bridges, I think. But look, so this is fantastic. I have to get back to work.
Get something done. Stop messing around and talking to me. What's the matter with you?
I know. Oh man. Hopefully I'll get some sleep tonight, but I love this stuff. So UFO releases tomorrow. I'm really glad that we were able to talk about this ahead of that. And I want to do an interview with you before every set, and I'm hopefully before seance we can actually do that interview in person.
That'd be great. Actually, I've got my new cinema cameras and stuff. Like once I figure all out how to get everything to talk to each other, be the way to go. Hey, Mike, thank you so much. I really appreciate the interview. Very impressed with UFO. I think it's going to do incredibly well, and I'll be in touch with you. And of course, this is one of the guys out in the woods doing Bigfoot now.
Found them. Hey, I'm on you know, interview with Michael. I can't talk to Bigfoot.
That's
right. This is your one chance to see him, and you're talking to me now. All right, I'll let you go. Thank you so much for everything. And
he's just a grouchy guy.
Yeah. All right, I'll talk.
Thanks a lot.
Later, and good luck with the launch of UFO tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right, see
you. Great night.
You too.